Assalamu alaikum. يسعد مساءكم جميعا and welcome to our 23rd workshop in this semester. We will have inshallah one more workshop left this Wednesday. So today's workshop is going to be about editing, proofreading and revising skills presented by Dr. Arwa Gandeel. Dr. Arwa Gandeel is an assistant professor of English education at ALI, so at KAU as well. So Dr. Arwa, the floor is yours. You may start now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Basim. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share this with everybody here. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying this evening. Today we're going to be talking about proofreading and editing skills. It's such a very broad topic that might take, a whole month to talk about. But today I'm going to try to give you some tips, let's say, of how you can edit and proofread your own work and how you can improve actually your skills in doing so. So before we start, let me tell you what are we going to be doing today. So we're going to be talking, of course, about proofreading. We're going to be talking about editing, and we're going to do some kind of practices. The practices are going to be quite short because, when it comes to editing, it's good that we can practice editing a whole piece of work, but we won't be able to do so, but we'll be doing parts of, doing some samples actually. And then we'll have a question and answer session. This session will be towards the end and you're welcome to ask any questions. So let's move on. So why proofreading and editing is important? Why do you think so? So I think you believe it's important. That's why you're attending this session. What do you expect actually to hear in this session or to learn in this session? Any answers? To improve the writing, of course. Spot mistakes and correct them, of course. So this is the main thing, actually, to better communication, professionalism, of course, all this. So the first thing is to improve the quality of your writing. To confirm form sentences, academic writing, yes, to improve your academic writing, of course. Leading to perfectionism. Yeah, perfectionism, yeah. Looking for perfectionism. We're looking, let's say, for professionalism. Perfectionism is very hard to achieve. So even if you're really trying your best, it's close to, yeah, of course. So it improves, when you do proofreading and editing, of course, you're improving the quality of your writing. And the well-written documents are easier to read, of course. If they are easier to read, the result, proofreading to ensure that there is not any grammatical errors, capitalization errors, numbering errors, spelling errors, of course, all this. Yeah, we're talking about proofreading. Yes, of course. Thank you, Ms. Sheza. Okay, so of course, if your document is easier to read, it gives a good impression. If you are a student, you're gonna get better grades. If you are aiming at publishing, of course, you'll have more chances of getting your work published. So proofreading and editing is as important as writing your own work. So what is the difference? Let's talk about the difference between proofreading and editing. What do you think the difference is? So here, Ms. Sheza was saying, proofreading is important to ensure that there is no grammatical errors, capitalization, numbering errors, spelling errors. That's true about proofreading. What about editing? If you can look at the document, yes, we usually do it towards the end, actually. Editing is more about paragraphs. Yes, it's about paragraphs. Editing is a decision made to do certain correction. It can be grammar or structure. Is everybody not able to see the presentation? If you're, I think if you're logging in from your phones, it might not be possible. I'm not sure. Okay, we can see it. It's clear. Great. Yeah. Well, now I think it appeared, the difference between proofreading and editing. So this is it. Proofreading is more superficial. When I say superficial, I don't mean anything negative, but it's more on the, actually, it's the final step you do at the very end. It's the retouching process of your paper. But editing is deeper. It relates to content, structure. It looks at cohesion, how information and ideas are presented and connected together. And actually it aims at making the article better organized. The title slide. So you can't see my presentation. I'm not sure why. So just a minute. Can you see it this way? No? Okay. Sorry, just a minute. Check.
I think it's lagging. Can you just stop sharing and reshare it again, please? I think, yeah.
Can you see the slides now?
Yes. Can you enter for, yes.
So these are the slides you missed.
Yes, it's working now.
Okay, great.
Great.
We are here. Okay, so everybody can see it now. Great. So editing is deeper than actually proofreading, as we said. So it aims at making the article better organized, easier to understand. And it occurs multiple times during and after the writing. When we talk about writing is really a cyclical process. So all these stages of like editing, proofreading, drafting, they are all interrelated together. We can't say that now I'm going to just write my draft. I'm not going to be writing. It's really interrelated into the second stage because part of your draft will be actually included later. Just a minute, sorry, because I keep seeing notifications. Now they keep distracting me. Yeah, I think, yeah, I can't stop this way. So it's, when we talk about editing and proofreading, I can't say that there are separate stages of writing. They're quite interrelated. But when we talk, why the difference between both is important? Because in many universities, as a student, you're allowed to get a proofreader, but not an editor. Because editing is supposed to be the student's job, not actually anybody else. And there was a debate around this because it's very difficult to separate both actually processes. We'll know more. We'll start with proofreading. Why? Well, it's the last thing to do when you're writing because it's let's say, more, it's simpler. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Yes, because out of a sudden I received a notification, but now everything is okay. So proofreading is the final step before submitting your work, whether for your tutors or to your tutors or for publication. But we'll start with the last step and then we'll move on to editing because it's really interrelated with proofreading. So how can you proofread your work? How can you do this? There are many tips here. I'll talk into details about some of these steps, but before we do this, I'd like you all to move into our station for today. So we have a station today on Google Slides. We'll be working there. Why we'll be working there? We'd like this session to be more interactive, and I'd like to keep the things you're saying or writing in one place so you can go back to it whenever you need. So we have this, if you can all go to this Google Slide document, I'll be sharing it now. And please feel free to write as many tips or as many notes, skills for proofreading in these slides. Just a minute, I'll be sharing. Okay, so write as many as you can. How do you proofread? You have a number of slides. Just write on any of these slides. Don't worry about group name. Okay, just write on any of the slides. So I can see people writing. You have 5 slides. You can choose any and start writing, please. So I'd like to know, what do you know about proofreading? And then build on your knowledge. So we'll talk more about proofreading. You have 2 minutes to do so. So take your time. Unfortunately, if you're on iPad, you need to have the Google Slides. If you're an iPad or an iPhone, you need to have the Google Slides application. Don't worry, if you're an iPad or iPhone, you can write in the chat. You can write in the chat, okay? Don't worry, you can write in the chat till it downloads. If you can't access Google Slides, please feel free to write in the chat. So you have 1 minute left. I can see people still writing. Let's read what, so you've written grammar, spelling, punctuation, style, organization, so paragraphing. I'll highlight some of these. I'll tell you why later. Okay. Check the content, logic, audience, critical thinking, purpose. I'll highlight some of these. Here in the second slide, we say read carefully. Very good. Ask someone specialized in the major and has good English to proofread. I'll highlight this too. I'll tell you why later, but in a different color. MSOHC grammar correction. Also, this will be highlighted. Okay, in a different color. I'll tell you why later. Copy all my text, then paste it into a new document and read it there. Select language. Very good. Use grammar check program. Also highlighted. Okay, so let's see, print out a document and read it. Write the suggested editing to read it again. Highlight, there's some issues. Very good. Read the paragraph and make some changes and modifications that makes your work better. Then include some changes in word choice, syntactic order, and style. Take a break and come back to it. Very good. All what you said is really interesting, and I'm sure it's based on your own experiences. We'll talk more about this, but let's just go back to our presentation. Sorry, go back. So, some of the things that have been mentioned on the Google Slides are already here, and we'll comment on the highlighted notes or tips. So at first, find a quiet place, okay? Let's start from the very beginning, okay, which applies to all of us. You know, moving between two docs is it's not a very easy thing. But I think now, can you all see the slides now? I think yes, great. So we need to find a quiet place. It really needs your mind to be clear and in peace in order for you to be able to proofread. That is very good. One of you said you need to take time, take a break. So after you finish writing, it's better to give yourself some time, okay? And then go back and read, maybe at least they say give yourself 24 hours. At least 24 hours, and then you go back and then read what have you written. Why I highlighted the thing, find somebody who's really an expert in the field. It's okay to find a proofreader and to ask a proofreader to proofread your work. But in the session, we're focusing on getting you to proofread your work. Some people might find it really difficult to do so, but I think you can improve your skills to be able to do so. To be honest, to save your money and to improve your writing will be much better with time. When you improve your proofreading skills, you're really improving your writing skills at the same time. So one of the things we need to do, so give yourself some time. Yeah, acquiring the skill. You try, yes, to improve your skill. So one of the things is find a quiet place, try to read out loud. It's different. It makes a big difference. Out loud doesn't mean that I know some people are very quiet and they don't hasn't really proved effective. Of course, this is one of the things. I'll show you now in Word. Some of the problematic samples I'll show you today are actually when we try Word, when we try the editor, it's not the grammar checker. There is an editor in Word. This when you click there, you find that it's all the actually the issues are ticked and everything is fine. While it's not fine at all. So automatic, it's better to avoid automatic spelling and grammar checkers. I'm not saying don't use them at all. I have used them while doing my PhD. I've used Grammarly. This is the only one I used. It's more advanced than other, and I've used the actually paid version. So it's more advanced than other grammar checkers, but still, I can't rely on it. So I need to proofread after actually Grammarly. It can help. All the automatic spelling or grammar checkers, let's agree that they can help. But we can't rely on them. We can't rely on them because they are not really credible. They are not you. They are not a human being. So that's why I always say the best proofreader is the writer, because you can check if this is what you intended to say or not. Is this clear or not? Of course, human work is always needed. So, so this is the second thing. Try to read out loud. Try to focus on one type of phrase at a time. So punctuations and then grammar mistakes, it makes you more focused. I know you will say this is not realistic and I can't proofread for a million times. Usually you know your own errors. You know your own mistakes. And that's why it's very good to create a list of your personal mistakes, especially if you're a student. And this is very important for you. When you receive feedback from your tutor, from your supervisor, it's very good that you keep, what shall I do? How I respond to this feedback? This is one of the things that really helped me a lot while doing my PhD. Responding to my supervisor's feedback. What shall I do here? Next time, pay attention to this, pay attention to that. So in one of the websites I was reading, they said, create a list of your bugaboos, which means the things that scares you, the mistakes that you're really scared to fall in, to do. So create a list of these mistakes, and when you proofread, make sure that these mistakes are not there. So reading works as an input. I'm reading in the chat box of the output writing. So the more you read, the best your writing skills will be. Of course, I totally agree with this. And reading out loud makes you more focused. And then we said, create a list of your personal mistakes, create a guide based on the comments you receive from your supervisor or tutor. So the thing I've just said, pay attention to this, pay attention to that. So maybe not your mistakes, let's be more positive. Your reaction to the mistake. So next time, pay attention to your punctuation. You should use comma at this place and not that place. So things like this. So we said, give yourself time. Don't rely on automatic spelling or grammar checker. Compare your proofreading to a professional proofreader. Many people who are now depending on a proofreader to proofread their work. It's very good if you, send a piece of work to a proofreader and try to proofread this piece of work on your own. And then compare. What about the mistakes you actually underlined? Are they the same, different? And this way you can actually improve your proofreading skills. 2 no's, no to long sentences completely. Yes, it's a very good way, to be honest. And I've tried this myself. So the things I'm telling you, I've tried them myself. And if there's anything I didn't try myself, I will tell you this is something I didn't try. So no to long sentences. They are actually usually, most of the time they are not clear. Actually, they are always not clear, because when the reader is reading, they forget about the beginning of the sentence. So it shouldn't exceed 2 lines. The shorter, the better. I'm not saying like half a line. But if you can divide these actually two sentences into these two lines into two sentences, better. It depends, of course. Not overly sophisticated words. And this is something from experience. Why? Many students like to use actually sophisticated words. I'm not talking about jargon, which is like terms that are related to your own field. I'm not talking about this. No, I'm talking about sometimes instead of saying said, I would, no, I should search for another word. Proclaimed. No need. Go simple. Simple is professional. Nothing is simple is clear. Nothing wrong with simple words. I'm not, of course, saying informal. I'm saying simple words. One of my role models in this, and you can have a look at his own writing, his own books, is Simon Borg. He was my supervisor. And when I look at his writing, he never used things that maybe even somebody who's not in the field will understand what he's talking about. So this is, I know it's difficult if you're talking about, scientific research, talking about other fields, but because I'm coming from an educational background, can see some of the articles are very difficult to understand. It takes time for you. You need to read the sentence sometimes twice. What do you mean here? But some people are very simple. So what's wrong with being simple? So these are some of the things. So this is one of the things I realized when I was correcting my students, actually, assignments. It's absolutely fine to repeat some words. I see that they're putting effort not to repeat words. And you'll see this in one of the samples I'm going to be showing you. It's fine. It's totally, absolutely fine to repeat some words. I know you don't want to sound repetitive. Repetitive is different. Being repetitive is different. And most of the time it relates to meaning more than grammatical or word choice, grammar or word choice. So I think these are, I want to comment on some of the things that were on the doc, but we're not going to go back there. But some of the things I highlighted. Do you have any questions regarding the tips, or do you have a tip we didn't say? Please feel free to share anything regarding proofreading. I highlighted check the style, check organization, check paragraphing. This is more related to editing rather than proofreading. That's why we didn't really cover this now. Using MS Word, I told you why, our grammar spell checker, I told you why I highlighted this. Print out a document and read it. This is a very good tip. It's not included here, but I didn't include everything here. It's a personal preference, to be honest. Some people like to print out the document. Some people like to do it on their iPads. I used to transfer my Word document into a PDF, and I highlight this thing. So this is how I do proofreading. I highlight things on my iPad, so it depends how you want to do it. It's a personal preference. Write the suggested editing to read it again. So maybe you want to do your editing or your proofreading in a different color, and then you do re-proofreading. Highlight some issues. Highlighting is proved to be really helping. So you can, of course, try highlighting. Any comments, any questions about this? We'll move on to a very simple exercise. What I'd like you to do now, these are some sentences, very simple sentences, okay? So they are not really taken from a very academic piece or anything. But we'd like to spot the errors and try to correct them. Anybody spot any? errors in the first sentence, so sentence number 1. People will, I'm sure people will give different suggestions, but it always means present simple, sometimes present simple and sometimes present perfect. But yes, I'm always willing to work, can't, not, don't. Let's focus first on the first sentence, okay? So I always want to work, very good, for, okay? I always want to work for organization. Any other mistakes? In the same sentence, an organization, thank you. We're done with sentence number one. We'll see the correct answers in a minute. Number two, maybe she didn't follow the advisor, the physician. Okay. Did not, this is the first mistake, follow the advisor, advise or advisor, advise. Okay, advice or advisor, okay. The physician, the physician of the physician, okay. Let's move to sentence number three, quite good. I think, I'm reading it as it's written. I think I can't done the task. Advice of the physician, thank you, Miss Iman. Think, of course, and then can't, done, done, no, can't, and then what's after can't? Cannot do the task. Thank you very much, Ms. Sumaya. This task are finished yesterday. Thank you everyone. Other answers? Has finished, was finished. Quite good. Okay, let's move on. These are the corrected sentences. So I have always wanted to work for an organization. It can be I always want to work for an organization. Both are correct. That's totally fine, absolutely fine. Okay, it doesn't have to be present perfect, it can't be present simple. Maybe she did not follow the advice of the physician. Okay, I didn't correct the physician, but it's, you corrected it. And then I think I will not be able to do the task. We can't say cannot. Sometimes in academic writing, they prefer that you use will not be able to, be able to, but it's fine. So will not be able, depends on the context, to be honest, to do the task. I corrected the last one in a different way, and I corrected it. So this task was finished yesterday, correct. These tasks were finished yesterday, correct, depending on the context. What's the aim of such an activity? The aim of such an activity is sometimes, that's why, just to show you that proofreading is on a superficial level. We do this in different ways. Okay, it's very individual. We did this in different ways. It depends on the context. Correcting one sentence is different from correcting a sentence in a context, inside a paragraph. And of course, editing is deeper. So it needs more advanced skills. Because editing, I'm not just looking if this sentence is correct or not. I'm looking if this sentence fits in this paragraph. Does it convey the intended meaning? So let's move on. How can you edit what you write? So now we'll move on to editing. I need to pay attention while I'm talking about editing. You'll feel that, of course, proofreading is included. It's included because editing is bigger than proofreading. So you'll see that some of the things that I'm going to say when it comes to editing applies also to proofreading. So I'm talking about, here I'm going to be talking about specific issues. So the first issue I'm going to talk about is clarity. When we talk about clarity, what does clarity mean? What is clear writing? It means the written message equals the intended meaning and equals the reader's understanding. So what the reader understands is what I intended to say and what's written in front of me. Exactly, crystal clear, simple to be understood. By the way, sometimes the intended meaning equals the reader's understanding, but it does not equal the written message. How? Sometimes when I correct my students' assignment, I tell them, I know what you meant to say this and this and that, but your sentence is not very clear. So I got her intended meaning, but she didn't express her idea in a very clear way. So it needs to be these three things together in order for us to describe something that is clear. Written message equals intended meaning and equals the reader's understanding. So when we talk about clarity, a balance of understanding that represents the transferring of message between all parts. Exactly. Short sentences, yeah, no long sentences, of course, because it's going to be, it has to be, not clear actually. A long sentence is always not clear, right? If the person reading your work does not know anything in the word, right? Yeah, exactly. As if this person does not know anything. This will convey the idea. Sometimes this is a bit risky because you're going to be wordy. So don't explain the clear. How sometimes something that is very clear, it shouldn't be, we'll talk about wordiness in a minute. Okay, we'll talk about wordiness in a minute, but it's true. Write to a person so anybody can understand what you're writing. Sometimes you read scientific articles, physics, it's very clear, very clear. You are not from the field and you can't understand. This is what we're talking about. Writing simple and short sentences and complex one, exactly. Create the balance between being professional, academic, and simple. Be concise. This is the first tip. So be specific. Use specific words. Make sure that the meaning that is conveyed by your sentences is specific. So I know what you mean. It's not vague when we're talking about sentence level. Use of pronouns is sometimes very confusing. So you need to pay attention to pronouns. What each pronoun refers to. Very basic, I think. Use words that you know. Of course, you write for experts in the field when you're publishing. Of course. You write to somebody who's, that's why I said it's a bit risky to write as if nobody, this is maybe, it applies to students when they're writing the assignments, you know, sometimes they're telling stories, writing a paragraph, but you need to know your audience. This is a very important point. You need to know your audience. So if you're planning for publishing, you need to know your audience. And imitate what's written in the field. Find somebody who's really good in your field. His writing is clear. Try to read more and more. By reading, you'll find yourself imitating that person. Of course. So use words that you know. What if I don't know enough? Okay, some of you might ask, but I don't know this word or that word. You got my point? So we need to convey my meaning. When you use words that you don't know, make sure you're using them correctly. How I make sure that I'm using them correctly? check the context of the new words in some articles in your field. Just go to Google Scholar, very simple, okay? And then check. This is the simplest thing you can do, of course, reading. The more you read, the better your writing will get, as some of you, or one of you said at the beginning. And some people prefer to read, take notes, and then write. Some people prefer to read and write at the same time. Well, I know these are totally personal preferences, but I think reading and writing helps a lot in improving your writing. So we said when we use words that we don't know, we're all going to be faced by this. We need to use a word that we really don't know. Shall we use this word? And sometimes when you find words that you really like how it was used in a specific article or something, you can accumulate your own list of vocab. You can. It's going to be very helpful. Ask yourself questions. One of the questions you ask yourself, are my sentences clear? Is this clear? Read and write a summary, then write it with a different way. Yes, if you prefer to do so. For example, myself, writing summaries is a totally different skill. And for me, it's one of the most difficult things that anybody would ask me to do. Like, I'm not into, to be honest, I'm not into writing summaries. That's it, just a personal preference. But if you like to do this, please do it. Some people thought the more they used odd words, of course, but it's the opposite. When you use odd words, you give a very bad impression sometimes. The impression would be bad, not good at all, actually. So ask yourself, writing is something man speaking to man. I didn't really get this, but if you can explain more. So when you ask yourself, are my sentences clear? Check the words, check how, the length of the sentence. They say you can read your paper one sentence at a time, starting from the last sentence and moving backwards. I know this is very difficult when you're writing a very long paper, but you might try it with a short one and see if it works. I didn't try this. I'm not interested. I feel it's too difficult, to be honest, or challenging, but some people it might help them. It might help. And when I said it before in a workshop, they said, yeah, I've tried it before. One of the people who were attending, they said they tried it before and it actually helped. Especially if you're facing problems with your sentences. So your sentence is not clear. If you receive this kind of comment, you need to react upon the comment. What do I think about less is more? You mean when they say that the shorter the better sometimes? Do you mean this? If you mean this, it's part of being concise. Yes. I think it's about also avoid being wordy, and we'll talk about wordiness in a minute. You don't have to write, for example, this example just came to my mind. I'm not going to be working here anymore. No need to say this. I left my job. So this is an example of wordiness, okay? Just one example, of course. There are many examples. So you can say one thing, simple way, actually fewer words. So I agree with that, to be honest. Be direct. Exactly. So an example of avoid. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Padding. Yeah. this is an example from my own writing, okay? This was, I think, the first paper I've written as part of my PhD. And there is one thing that I didn't do. Why? Because I knew my audience. So my audience were my supervisors. So I know that my supervisors know specific terms. So I didn't define these terms. And this is one of the mistakes we do sometimes, as when we don't define our terms. When you're writing a research paper, you have to define your terms. So if I'm writing about teacher cognition, okay, which is teacher cognition is anything that is in the head of the teacher. So their beliefs, their ideas, their attitudes, anything that is in the head. So my supervisor has written, okay, this was his comment, define this. What is teacher cognition? He knows what is teacher cognition, but when I am writing, I need to explain what do I mean by teacher cognition. In the literature, there are many actually definitions for teacher cognition. What do I mean in this specific research paper? So I need to define my terms. The other thing I did, which was might make things not very clear. So not defining your terms will make your paper actually not very clear, because you start talking and people will be thinking, what do you mean here? Not everybody knows what's teacher cognition. Not any teacher knows what's teacher cognition. And then while I was talking, I actually talked about teachers' beliefs. And I was asked, are you talking about teacher cognition or teacher beliefs? Why this happened? Why this was not clear? Well, beliefs is part of cognition, because I didn't define my terms. So when you do something that's not very clear, other things builds on it. And maybe the whole message of your paper might not be very clear because of this. So we need to pay attention to our terms, define our terms, and then so if I define teacher cognition, I would say it includes teacher beliefs, attitudes, and everything. And then when I talk about teacher beliefs, it's going to be justified. It's going to be very clear. The connection between both is going to be very clear. I hope this example was clear to you. Let's look at this exercise. I want you to look at this sample, okay, and tell me what's wrong with this. This is taken from a real, actually, piece of writing. It was about assessments, okay? So let me know what's wrong with this piece of writing. Long sentence. Any other issues? Did you understand? Can you tell me what's the aim of this piece of writing? What assessment stands for? To be honest, it's a bit difficult to understand. This is the main issue. It's not very clear. Why it's not very clear? At first, there's a very long sentence in the middle. Okay, I have realized that assessments are more effective. There are some typos, okay, in the middle, grammatical mistakes. The main idea is lost. And so now, you know, all these come together to make two commas, to make this piece of writing not clear. Okay, can you imagine that the sentence, the first sentence, and I'm going to tell you why this happens. The second sentence, the primary reason for this is a very long sentence, and then we use however. So we're connecting somehow the last sentence with the second sentence. Connecting a sentence with the long sentence makes things worse, actually. I'm sorry to use this word, but makes things worse. So it's not very clear. It's not clear at all, actually. This happens when you write and you don't revise. And here I'm using the word revise. Revise includes both editing and actually editing and proofreading. Okay, so you're all getting some mistakes from here and there. I'm sure the person who wrote this would be able to do this, but maybe they didn't have time. So always give yourself time. When I say give yourself time, not just to proofread, give yourself time before your deadline. Try your best. Try your best before your deadline so you can proofread your work. You can revise your work. Because even if you send this to a proofreader, they won't be able to do it. I assure you, they won't be able to do it. It's something you need to do. You understand what you want to say here. Or they would do something that is not really related to your intended meaning or message. The problem of dividing sentences, it's not a very straightforward or easy thing, but give yourself time. So don't do it on the same day. Second day. So when you're writing a paper, I used to do this, to be honest. When I'm writing a paper, I'll start writing. The second day, I'll revise what I've written and then I'll continue. I do this every day because I was doing a PhD, of course. So I'll revise what I've written before and then I'll edit and proofread and then I'll continue. Edit, proofread, continue. It helped me a lot. Like I submitted, I'm not now bragging or showing off, but I submitted my thesis. No, I didn't use any proofreaders. It's not because I'm an English major and all this, but I think it's mainly because of this thing, what I was doing. So the thing that is leaving it for one day and the second day before I continue writing, I would edit and proofread and then I continue. So writing. Of course, there are some typos and mistakes. I'm not perfect, but even when I sent it once, I sent part of my work to a proofreader, I didn't like it at all because I'm not sure why. Maybe the proofreader. So exactly. Start your day by reviewing what you've written yesterday, what you really wrote, and then continue writing. It helps a lot. If you're doing a PhD, I'm not sure if anybody is here doing a PhD. If you've written a couple of pages, sometimes you'll spend the day not writing a new thing, but just editing and proofreading, and that's absolutely fine. Don't feel bad. Because sometimes we put, an aim, a goal that we want to finish like 500 words or 200 words or whatever in one day. If you didn't do it and you actually edit and proofread, a goal achieved. And it applies to your thesis. If you're doing your thesis or you're going to be doing it soon. Okay. So let's just, I want to make sure that time. Yeah. So the bottom line, nobody has ever been criticized for writing that is too clear. So be clear. The second issue we have today, when it comes to editing and proofreading, is overall structure. You need to look at the overall structure, and this is what you can do actually, not just after you finish everything, the daily practice. So you go and check clear and appropriate introduction and conclusion. Usually you do this at the very end, because many people write their introductions at the very end. Yeah. Okay, I think most people or everybody. Okay, but for example, myself, I like to write an introduction, just the beginning, just a plan. So I'll write about this and this and that at the very beginning. And I might change it and edit it and everything, but I like to write an introduction at the beginning. Yeah, background. And then, so you'll revise this towards the end. Is your main topic stated in your introduction? Okay. One of the issues about introductions and conclusions, see, you usually read online that the in conclusion is a recycling of the introduction. This might apply for very beginner students, but even for very beginners, I usually tell them, like, let the conclusion be about your feelings, about what you want to do in the future, you know, whatever the topic is. But sometimes you go into repetition. The conclusion is wrapping up, is giving a summary, especially if you're writing a paper. People will be looking at your introduction. Your introduction is a very introduction and conclusion. We all know that they are maybe the most important parts of your paper, especially the conclusion. So it needs to be summarizing. It needs to be more of a summary of what you have written. So if anybody look at it, so understanding the purpose of your writing will help you to improve your writing. So when you're revising or editing your conclusion, make sure that you understand that the purpose of this is to give the reader a summary of the whole article or your whole dissertation. And of course, your introduction is background, okay, information, telling them what you're going to do. What is this about? Is your main topic stated in your introduction? Generally, make sure that your paragraphs are well connected and the main idea of each paragraph is very clear. Like the paragraph we read, the main idea was not clear. And this was one of the problems. So make sure that there is a logical sequence of ideas and smooth transition between paragraphs. And how do you know this? By reading out loud, leaving your work for some time and then reading with a different eye. And then when you read, you'll discover things. You'll realize, oh, this is not what I mean. Of course, moving smoothly from one paragraph to another, they're well connected. Flow. Thank you very much. Style. When we talk about style, writing style, of course, we're talking about formal tone and informal tone. Sometimes it's not just about words you use. It's about your tone, okay? You're doing something that is, we usually use it, like I tell the students, this is something we say when we're speaking, not when we are writing an academic paper. So whether informal words, informal expressions, avoid this completely. And sometimes we're not aware that this is informal. So check, go and check. I do this until now. I just go to Google very quickly. This word in academic writing. And then they would tell you. Most probably they would tell you this should be used in academic writing or shouldn't be used in academic writing. Length and structure of sentences. Okay, so we talked about this when it comes to clarity, but as I told you, these are interrelated, they're connected together. Passive voice. A long story. I'm not saying use the passive voice. No, sometimes it's very not clear to use the passive voice. So I would say avoid using the passive voice most of the time, unless it's needed. Using I is debatable. Okay, so people will be thinking, shall I use I? It depends on your context. It depends on your field. It depends on your tutor, your supervisor. When I was doing my MA, in my university, they said it's totally and absolutely fine to use I. And you can't go back to this article about using I in writing. Actually, you will find that there are some people who are against the use of we, because who are we? You are I, unless you are two writers, you're talking about two writers or something like this, I think using I is absolutely fine. But don't overuse I, and don't use it in a way that makes it informal. Okay, so in many fields, you'll find different people, different debates. You're pro-passive voice. I'm pro-passive. You're pro-passive, sorry. It depends on your field. If you're coming from a totally different field, using the passive voice would be many people would be in favor of using the passive voice. But when it comes to education, I would say, based on my background, use I when needed. You're the researcher. When you say data was collected, who collected the data? You collected the data. What's wrong with saying I collected the data? I don't think there is any problem with saying. If you prefer to avoid it, that's fine. But overusing the passive sometimes is awkward, to be honest, at least to me, especially in assignments. I'm not talking about theses or dissertations. Yeah, these are the modern views, sorry. These are the modern views. The modern views support using I. Okay, so you can read about it. You can read more on Highland. Highland is an expert in writing. Yeah, our study focus on because there are more than one writer. So if it's one writer, he would say my. If it's more than one writer, they would say we or our. It's preferred to use we instead of I. No, if you're one writer, no, I don't think so. If you are two writers, yes, we. Wordiness, we talked, I think, a little bit about wordiness. Be specific and to the point. So don't avoid padding. And you can read more about padding when you use unnecessary words to convey a specific meaning. You need to ask your supervisor. If it's your thesis, ask your supervisor, because you don't want to upset your supervisor. Okay, so ask your supervisor. If they don't want you to use I, just listen to them. Okay, so it's better if I use I with my findings, opinion, or my heart. Yeah. If it's needed, use it. If you feel that I should use I here, use it. The study was conducted to rather than I conducted. It's fine sometimes to say the study was conducted to, but I'm saying avoiding using the passive voice is not recommended, personally. But I told you, it depends on your supervisor, your tutor. You need to ask them, is it okay or it's not? Your supervisor prefers we, use we. Because maybe what he meant or she meant that you worked on this together. So that's why we. It's totally fine. Our work. Absolutely fine, because it's supervised by somebody else. What I was what I was talking about, that's why when we're talking about different genres or different types of articles, if you're talking about your thesis, maybe some supervisors prefer using we because it's a shared kind of work. Some other supervisors would say use I because it's your work. It depends. When we're talking about articles, it depends on in the journal you are publishing at. So if the journal supports using I, use I. If they don't. And if you're one author, use I. If you're two, use we. It depends, as I told you. So there is no right or wrong really when it comes to this. We'll move on because I want you to have some time to do the practice. It depends on where you want to put the stress on. If you need to say, I did this, because I remember now an example from my thesis. I wanted to say that I was trying, in my observation, I tried to be as invisible as I can when I was observing classes. Okay, when I was observing classes, I tried to be invisible. I tried not to interfere with the class. I can't avoid using I here because I'm talking about myself, the researcher. And my research was qualitative research. So I was there whether I want or I don't. So this is one example of actually a sentence that I really needed to use I in. Okay. So the last issue is citations. Citations can be problematic and can cause big concerns. So you can just focus on citations and references in one of your proofreading times. So have you appropriately cited quotes, paraphrases, and ideas you got from sources? Ask yourself this question. Did you use the required referencing style? So most of you are using APAs, right? I'm not an expert on that. I know how to use Harvard, Leeds, APA. So I'll give you an example. Are you consistent? So you know that there are different versions of the same referencing style. Make sure that you're using one version. Example, you know that in 2000, sorry, I don't know why this is happening. You know that in 2019, a new version of ABA was released. Okay, the latest version is ABA 7, I think. I'm not an expert on that, just an example. So there are like some differences. Retrieved from is used, okay, in ABA 6, but not in ABA 7. So make sure that if you're actually using two websites, you're using APA 7 with both websites. So use one version of a referencing style. What's the best style for references? There is no best style. The best version is the latest version, maybe, or what's required. It depends on what's required. Okay, it depends on what's required. When we say what's required, in my university, what was required was Leeds, Harvard. So it was Harvard style, but it was, the version is Leeds version. Okay, so exactly, it's according to your field. So the best referencing style, it's the required one, or it depends. Sometimes when you publish papers, it depends. Using referencing management is very good, but you also need sometimes to revise. Make sure that you entered all the information, because you know, if you missed one of the information, I use EndNote. If you missed something, they will simply, you will be exporting the you will be exporting the you will be exporting the reference with missing information. So make sure that your references are ready. If you're using one of the softwares, make sure that all the information are actually is complete. Yes, same referencing style, same version for all styles, for all references. Very important. So this is the end of our theoretical part of today. We just have a kind of exercise to do. You find references. I'll share this later with you. I think it's going to be shared on the Writing Center Drive. We'll move on to our Google slide to do some kind of activity. I'll try to divide you into groups. I'm not sure if I'm an expert in doing this on Zoom, but can I ask if anybody here can help me to divide the participants in groups?
Well, I guess Zoom does not have this kind of feature. So
Really?
we can just share a screen, as Abdurrahman mentioned here. That's okay, I guess.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just share the screen then. Okay, so we have this practice for proofreading. So student was answering the following question from an observation report. How well designed were the teaching material? This was the question. Can you all see my Google Slides? Okay, just let me make sure that everybody can see this. Okay, so let's look at this and see what's wrong with this. Okay, so there's something wrong. You know this for sure. There's something wrong with this. So what's wrong? Sorry. Except for an activity worksheet, there haven't been any materials prepared since it was a very short revision class. The content of the lesson was very simple, direct, and clear to the students. To illustrate one grammatical rule was revised, and 2 activities in the production stage were very appropriate for the time allowed. In short, everything was clear and straightforward. So done. Let's check the other slide. Okay, this slide. Okay, any materials prepared since a very short revision class except for an activity worksheet. The content of the lesson, can you see the differences? So if you look at this, it started with except for an activity worksheet. What's wrong with this? What's wrong with starting in this way? It's a bit what? It's a bit informal. Okay, while sometimes when you're writing reports, okay, when we're writing reports, we sometimes, I think, forget that it's still a very academic piece of work. So it needs to be written in a formal way. So this is a better start. There weren't any materials prepared, and it's clear, actually more clear to do this. When we use a formal or kind of academic tone, it's much more clear. Let's move on to the next. Just let me make sure that this. Okay. So a student was describing her teaching experience. Can you just highlight some points which you think that needs to be changed? So in another part of my experience, I had the chance to teach in a private school for 1 year. I taught grade 5 and grade 6 students. I had another opportunity to show in an secondary school for another year. I had the opportunity to teach in 3 different places with different kinds of students, thus making my skills in teaching knowledge broader. How can you edit this? Please use the slides, write your name, and take some time. Take at least 5 minutes to do this. It might take you longer. So write your name. I'll copy more slides. So or you can write in the chat, of course. If there are any specific mistakes you would like to pay our attention to. What about the first sentence? Is it okay, or would you like to change it? The beginning of the first sentence. Anybody who would like to change the beginning of the first sentence? Of course, it's not very easy to do this because this part is taken out of, I took this out of context, but you can say that there's no need to say in another part of my experience. You can say I also had the chance to, or the opportunity to teach in a private school. Okay, so you get rid of some of the words. And this is what I mean by when I say wordiness. Actually, you can delete the whole thing. You can't just say, I had the opportunity to teach in a private school for 1 year, because we know this is your teaching experience. I taught grade 5 and grade 6 students. This is fine. What about I had another opportunity to show in a secondary school for another year? How can you, despite overwhelming evidences to the first hand? Unfortunately, it's not informal. It was meant to be academic, but not highly academic. So she's talking about her teaching experience. It was supposed to be a formal kind of writing. Yeah, because she's talking about her experience. What about the next sentence? I had another opportunity to show in a secondary school for another year. How can we change this sentence? She can say, I had the opportunity to teach in a secondary school, or I taught in a secondary school. Or to make it more or clear, she can say the grades she taught, because at the beginning she said she taught grade 5 and grade 6 students. So I also taught grade this and this, grade 11 and 12 in a secondary school at this time. She can mention the specific year, the specific time. I don't think we need to change, I taught grade 5 and grade 6 students. I don't think it should be changed. It's very clear, by the way. This is my opinion. It's very clear. Okay, because she taught actually grade 5 and grade 6 students in the elementary private school. The first sentence needs to be changed, and this needs to be connected to it. So instead of adding things to the second sentence, we need to change the first sentence. This is it. So the sentences are not connected, okay? Then the conclusion, she should name, no, actually, because it was meant to be anonymous somehow. So no need to mention the school. And sometimes even when you're talking about research, it's better to keep it anonymous, because we don't know what she's going to be saying about the schools. So I got your point. Yeah, I got your point. Yeah, she can mention it in a specific context. Yeah. What about, by the way, there's no right or wrong in this, but we all agree that there is a problem with this piece of writing. But how it can be corrected, you know, that's why I didn't put another sample of how should it be. No, because there's no way that we can all agree on one type of editing. I had the opportunity to teach in 3 different places with different kinds of students, thus making my skills in teaching knowledge broader. This sentence can be summarized, can be made shorter. Okay? Yeah, of course. So this whole part we can make the sentences shorter, change some words, and add more connecting words. So this is how can we edit it. Do you all agree? Of course, everyone has a different style of editing because we have different styles of writing. Now, there's no right or wrong. There are different just styles of writing. Wrong means there is grammatical vocabulary. There is an issue with the writing. Okay. So sometimes if you're a tutor, you're correcting your students' assignment, maybe you don't like this specific writing style or how they write things, but you can't say anything. You can't say, I didn't like this sentence. We can't say there is an issue with this sentence. But we can't say we don't like it. Sometimes we don't like it, but we don't say it. Most probably, sometimes, to be honest, I don't, because when we're correcting, we're not taking this personally. It's about being objective. And when you don't like something, it's usually because it's not clear. Usually there's an issue with it. The clearer, the better, always. So any comments, any suggestions, any questions, because we're done for today.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Arwa, for this wonderful, informative, and interactive workshop. We really enjoyed. This is very important topic. We all need this kind of information. So thank you again. Let's now open the floor for questions and comments. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand, or you can just post them here in the chat. I'm gonna share with you now 2 links. The first one is the evaluation form. Please complete it. And the second one is the YouTube channel. Inshallah, this video will be uploaded to our YouTube channel within, inshallah, 24 hours. So Bandar, go ahead. Oops.
I just would like to say thank you, everyone. It was a very interesting workshop. It was one of the best I ever gave because it was very interactive. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much to everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Arwa. Go ahead, Bandar. Yes.
Yes, hello, how are you? Can you hear me? I'm talking from my iPhone. I hope you can hear me well.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I would like first to thank you, Dr. Arwa, for the informative presentation you have did with us. Could you please tell us briefly about your experience when you started writing your proposal?
You mean my PhD proposal?
Yep.
That was a long time ago. To be honest, I don't have vivid memories about it, but I do remember that I was doing my MA at that time.
Any advices?
The main thing is when you choose your topic, choose a topic that you're passionate about and that is feasible. So passionate about because you're gonna live with your topic for
4 years.
That amount of years, and feasible because you need to make sure that you can really collect data and do research this topic. You can really explore it in your context, especially at these times, with everything that is happening, online teaching. So you need to make sure that your topic you can collect data even if classes are still running online and all these things. So just be realistic when choosing your topic. So passionate and realistic.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the advice.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Arwa. Thank you, Mr. Bandar. Any more questions or comments? We still have about 7 minutes. All right, so I think there are no more questions. Okay, here we have one from HS. I have a problem, which is when people read my work, they always say that there is a redundancy. So, but when I read my work, I never realize where is the redundancy. How can I discover that? Very interesting question.
Okay, maybe when it comes to people reading your work saying redundancy, let them point out areas where they find redundancy, because sometimes it's very difficult to read our own work and know the problem. Okay, so it relates to padding. Sometimes maybe you're saying similar to what we maybe use today. So you're using more words, but this sentence can be said in like, it can be shorter. We can say this in fewer words. So if the person who's saying, if it's your tutor, let them just point out the area where they can see, okay, there is redundancy here. Okay, give me the solution for this. How can I change this? If they, point out where is redundancy, and then they give you maybe they change this for you. Okay, you need to practice doing this. There's no easy answer to say, how can I discover one of the problems in my writing, to be honest. There's no, it needs work. So, but it needs help from other people who are saying this. So redundancy, highlight everything and give me one example of how can I solve this, and I'll solve the rest of the samples. And then give it back to them. I think the Writing Center can help with this, but I'm not sure how, but I think they can help with this because there is some kind of consultations in the Writing Center. So if you're studying at the university, you can, on their YouTube channel, there are some videos or things that can help. So ask for help. This is the answer.
Yes, exactly. Dr. Arwa, yeah, you can just make an appointment with one of our specialists, writing specialists, so we can help you out with this to even improve your writing skills. Okay, Abdurrahman here. I have realized that assessments are more effective methods for testing. Okay, guess this is information. Okay, thank you, Abdurrahman, for sharing our YouTube channel. Proofreading service. We are working on this. Inshallah, we will launch this service soon, inshallah, for faculty member, as you know. But we are still working on this, inshallah. Once we have it done, we will announce this service. But now we can help you out with any kind of writing. You just make an appointment with our one of the writing specialists that we have, and ask him whatever you have. Ask him if you have like separate, if you have a couple paragraphs, if you have a section, for example, your introduction, literature review, whatever. You can just sit with one of specialists we have and ask him or her to help you out figuring out or make or to improve that section or that paragraphs. Okay, we're waiting for your service. Okay, inshallah, we will announce this. Bi'idhnillah. Contact. Okay, I'll share the email of the Writing Center of, I don't know if you want Dr. Arwa's email or Writing Center, Mr. Hisham. Okay, any more questions, comments? We still have 2 more minutes. If I think it is the same email that we received link. Okay, the Writing Center email. Okay, I'm gonna share it with you just in a minute. All right, so that's all. Thank you so much, Dr. Arwa. It was very informative, insightful presentation. We really enjoyed it. Thank you all for attending today's presentation. Again, we'll still have 1 more left this semester, this coming Wednesday, how to write a successful abstract for conferences. So thank you all again. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'll see you inshallah on Wednesday.